He was last seen hiking with his young son near a remote thermal pool in the Bitterroot Range. Hours later, they were gone, and for 4 years, the mountains stayed silent, until something strange surfaced from the spring. Morning light seeped through fir branches that day, catching wisps of vapor rising from the neon-rimmed pool locals call the Devil's Halo. Dylan Hart waved to a pair of backpackers heading down slope, his toddler giggling at a jay hopping along the stones. By dusk, their wagon waited alone at the trailhead, door ajar, a juice box sweating in the cup holder. Search dogs lost the scent at the pool's steaming edge. Helicopters droned overhead, powerless against the dense mineral mist. But the real mystery wasn't how a father and child could vanish in open daylight. It was why every compass needle spun wild whenever it neared that vivid ring, and why, after one violent storm, a single leather boot floated up through the boiling water, laces half melted, pointing back toward the depths. Search crews flooded the trail the first night, their headlamps rising and falling like fireflies against the black timber. Leah Hart pressed Dylan's hoodie to her face, trying to catch the faintest trace of his cologne. Dogs barked, then whimpered. Their handlers swore the animals refused to go near the steaming ring. Rangers dropped thermal drones, yet the live feed washed out whenever a camera lens pointed straight into the mist. Old-timers muttered that the halo was thin ground, a place where the crust breathes. At sunrise, the pool turned an eerie green, and the air smelled sharply of coins. One volunteer slipped on a slick of yellow algae, burning his palms where the water splashed. By day 3, the official search grid had expanded 10 miles, but every compass still jittered when brought back to the spring, as if the needle couldn't decide which world it belonged to. Rumors sprouted faster than the huckleberry bushes along Lost Horse Creek. Some hikers claimed they heard a child laughing beneath the wind, an echo that faded the closer they drew to the pool. Others swore the granite boulders around the halo felt warm at night, almost pulsing, as though the mountain itself held a slow heartbeat. A tribal elder from the Salish community cautioned that the ring had always been a door, a warning Dylan might never have understood. Leah listened in silence, clutching Evan's stuffed otter, refusing to accept folklore as fact. She mounted posters in every cafe from Darby to Missoula, her eyes hollow but fiery. Yet with each passing week, fresh snow sealed the ridges and the case file grew heavier with unanswered call logs, blurry satellite stills, and one haunting audio clip, a single sharp pop followed by the endless hiss of steam. Winter buried the search area beneath 6 feet of powder. Avalanche cannons thundered in neighboring valleys, but the halo never froze. It glowed under starlight like an eye that wouldn't blink. By spring, officials reclassified the incident as a presumed fatality, shelving active operations. Leah pushed back, hiring geologist Mara Klein to probe the basin. Mara lowered sensors into the vent and discovered temperatures spiking far higher than any recorded hotspot in the range, heat intense enough to melt rock into glass. Oddly, seismic logs showed microquakes timed almost to the minute of Dylan's last phone ping, as if the crust had hiccuped right when he disappeared. Funding dried up before Mara could drill core samples, but she filed one chilling note. Possible phreatic chamber directly below hiking path. Recommend restricted access. The warning gathered dust in a county inbox no one checked until it was too late. 4 summers later, a freak thunderstorm pummeled the Bitterroots, dropping hail the size of marbles and ripping spruce from the ledges. When dawn broke, rangers noticed the Devil's Halo had drained several inches, leaving a crusty, mineral-white ring on the rocks. Floating near the center was a leather hiking boot, its sole half dissolved, laces fused like blackened wire. Inside, investigators found a charred silver keychain engraved D+L Elaw. Leah collapsed at the sight, but steadied herself long enough to demand the pool be dammed for a full dredge. Divers in heat-proof suits descended through scalding water-tinted neon by dissolved metals. They surfaced quickly, shaken. Beneath the silt lay something like a collapsed tunnel, its walls glassy and smooth, as if flash-fired in an instant. Whatever had swallowed Dylan and Evan wasn't just water. It was a furnace hidden under painted stone. Forensic labs in Missoula scraped fragments from the boot and found traces of vaporized quartz, and an unknown alloy speckled with iridium, the sort formed only under extreme pressure, or cosmic impact. Scientists argued. Conspiracy forums exploded. Some claimed the Bitterroot had quietly become a geothermal ticking bomb. Others whispered about a military borehole project buried under non-disclosure. Leah didn't care for theories. She wanted evidence. Back at the site, Mara Klein returned with portable LiDAR, mapping voids beneath the pool. The scans revealed a winding cavity descending 40 meters, ending in a jagged chamber too hot to image. Instruments fried after 10 seconds, yet one frame survived. A faint, child-sized silhouette encased in crystallized mineral, curled as if asleep. Officials suppressed the photo, citing equipment artifact, but Mara slipped Leah a copy, its timestamp still glowing red, proof that the mountain held her son in a glass coffin of its own making. Local talk radio turned the story viral, dubbing the spring Montana's glass grave. Hikers avoided the trail. Businesses sold Devil's Halo t-shirts, and thrill-seekers camped illegally to hear the night hiss. Leah returned alone one stormy evening, setting candles around the empty basin. Lightning forked above, thunder rolling like a drumbeat. At midnight, a tremor rippled through the ground. The pool belched a plume of steam carrying flecks of iridescent ash. Something small thudded onto the wet gravel, a melted plastic dinosaur Dylan always kept clipped to Evan's carrier. Leah knelt, rain soaking her hair, and for the first time felt the halo's warmth under her palms, as if the earth exhaled. Then, through the swirling vapor, she heard a distant metallic clink echo from the cavern below, like a single step on hollow glass, reminding everyone within earshot that the Bitterroot Range was not yet finished speaking. As word of the glass silhouette spread, the Forest Service hammered area closed signs across Lost Horse Trail, yet curiosity still seeped past each barricade. A documentary crew from Denver arrived with a zirconia-coated drone built for volcanic vents. Mara, recently suspended for leaking the LiDAR frame, met them at dusk. She threaded the drone's tether into the vent where the boot had surfaced. Screen glow lit the pines as the camera dropped through scalding mist, past quartz plates that shimmered like stained glass. 10 meters down, signal fluttered. At 25, a tunnel appeared. Smooth, tubular, and unnervingly perfect. A pale contour hovered on the feed, small enough to be a child's hand fused into crystal. The crew gasped. Mara hit recall, but the image went white, replaced by a pulsing hum more mechanical than geologic. The tether yanked sideways, snapped, and the halo swallowed drone and proof in a single hiss of superheated steam. The clip, barely 30 seconds, looped on Mara's motel laptop all night. Frame by frame, she saw granular static, and then something stranger, a grid, as if the drone had caught circuitry etched into stone. Edge enhancement pulled faint hexagonal patterns around the frozen hand, a honeycomb cage. Leah whispered that the glow matched Evan's nightlight globe. They sat silent while the motel sign buzzed pink outside. Leah decided, if officials were sealing the range, they would speak first. A rogue podcaster famed for exposing Cold War bunkers streamed the raw file. Within 48 hours, Glass Grave trended across 8 countries. Agencies dismissed it as an AI fake, yet locals recognized the vent's crooked pine. Crowds pitched tents along the trailhead, lenses fixed on the steaming pool, waiting for the mountain to confess what it held below. The crowds brought noise the halo had never known. Drums, chanting, drone swarms, shaking the hiss of steam. On the 5th night, a convoy of black SUVs climbed the service road. Men in unmarked jackets raised floodlights and plastic berms, promising geothermal stabilization. Reporters were pushed back. Mara received a cease and desist bearing seals she didn't recognize. She smuggled her LiDAR drive to Leah in a bandage box, whispering, "If they bury this, at least one of us remembers." That evening, the basin's waterline dropped again, exposing a spiral groove scorched into the rock, as if a gigantic drill had kissed the surface. Radiation badges on a news team chirped, then went silent. Batteries drained in a single gulp. Behind the barriers, technicians lowered a tuning fork-like device into the vent. When it touched the water, the pool glowed violet and the surrounding floodlights flickered. an electric heartbeat no storm could explain. Leah watched from a ridge while lightning webbed the sky like cracked glass. Each strike sent a color ripple across the halo, red, then green, then a deep indigo she'd seen only on a hospital monitor. That night she slipped past the perimeter with Mara and the podcaster, following a dry wash lit by intermittent flashes. Near the vent they felt vibrations in their boots, a slow thrum like hidden machinery. The ground sagged. A new fissure opened, draining half the pool. Steam parted to reveal a stone archway descending into darkness. Leah clipped Evan's dinosaur to her belt, switched on a headlamp, and stepped onto the glassy ramp, every footfall ringing as if on hollow metal. Behind her, Mara logged seismic spikes. The mountain was awake and listening. The ramp spiraled downward, walls translucent, veins of amber fluid pulsing like slow lightning. After 30 paces, the tunnel widened into a chamber where heat shimmered but did not burn. In the center lay a splintered hiking frame, its canvas fused into a glassy puddle. Leah knelt, fingers trembling over the charred nylon strap she had sewn herself. Nearby, a cracked phone rested upright in a ring of ash, screen intact though the battery read 0. Mara slipped it into a Faraday pouch. The podcaster's mic caught a faint whir, a cadence almost musical, echoing through side passages too tight to enter. Suddenly, the chamber brightened turquoise. A low rumble rolled overhead. Water began trickling back down the ramp. One shared look decided everything. Leave now or become part of the Halo's collection. They ran. Water chased their heels, sizzling where it met the radiant floor. At the surface, lightning struck the rim, blasting molten spray. Behind them, the archway collapsed, sealing the ramp beneath a waterfall of fluorescing slurry. By dawn, the vent was gone, replaced by a crusted scar. Officials claimed the system had naturally reset, banning further entry. But in a motel 2 towns away, Mara bypassed the phone's dead battery and extracted one video file. Dylan's voice filled the room, soft with wonder. "Look at this place, buddy. It's hollow." Evan giggled. A sudden roar, a flash of white, then silence. The timestamp matched the moment his phone died 4 years earlier, proof the Halo hadn't taken father and son all at once. Whatever lurks beneath the Bitterroot Range waits, patient, for the next curious step into its glowing throat. By noon, the day after they extracted the phone file, Leah posted the 30-second clip online. Views exploded past 1 million before sunset. Listeners recognized Dylan's gentle baritone and Evan's high giggle echoing in the glass tunnel. Voice analysts confirmed both were genuine. In the background, however, lurked something else, a pulsing sub-bass throb that made earbuds tremble. Commenters argued over its source, an underground pump, volcanic resonance, or a mechanical chamber waking from sleep. Federal spokespeople dismissed the footage as AI-assisted fabrication, yet they refused to release their own seismic data. The harder officials pushed back, the more the public believed Leah. #HatchDevilsHalo trended across the globe, drawing caravans of believers to Bitterroot County roads. At dusk, a column of black-windowed trucks rumbled toward the range, headlights off. Cell service vanished behind them, as though someone flipped a switch on the whole valley. Mara and Leah fled to an abandoned ranger cabin with an independent audio specialist, Jonah Shaw. Under a single lantern, they fed the phone clip through a spectrogram. Colors blazed across the screen, peaks at inhumanly low frequencies, spaced like a heartbeat. Yet in mid-band, Jonah found a whisper beneath the roar, a pattern of 3 ascending notes repeating every 12 seconds. Slowed down, it resolved into Evan's tiny voice counting 1, 2, 3, followed by a metallic clang. Leah's nails dug crescents into her palm. Jonah traced the interval to a microquake register from the day Dylan vanished. Each tremor lined up with the child's counting. "He wasn't just lost," Mara murmured. "He was moving deeper, step by step." Outside, thunder rolled over the ridgeline, but no storm was forecast. The Halo, it seemed, beat to its own weather. That night, a sudden tremor split a shale shoulder above the basin, sending boulders crashing onto the closed trail. When dust cleared, hikers witnessed a second vent. Narrow, luminous, exhaling pale blue steam that smelled of orchids. The ground around it glistened with newborn glass petals, still warm. Rangers cordoned off the area, yet Leah, Mara, and Jonah slipped in through a service culvert. The new vent resonated with the same triple pulse found in Evan's audio. Jonah lowered a parabolic mic. The chamber below answered with a soft, bell-like chime, almost welcoming. Leah leaned close enough for her breath to swirl into the vapor. The steam coated her skin in a cool tingle despite the heat. She swore she heard a child humming from the deep, a lullaby she sang on rainy nights. Before she could speak, a fresh tremor shivered the ridge, and the vent narrowed like a closing iris. The trio retreated, but Mara snagged a shard of the new glass, no larger than a coin. Under Jonah's field scope, its surface displayed microscopic grooves, spirals nested inside spirals, more precise than any drill. Back at the cabin, gentle heat from a camping stove made the shard flex like living cartilage. Within its folds gleamed a single brass emblem fused into the matrix. Dylan's fire crew badge, warped yet unmistakable. Leah traced the fire eagle with shaking fingers. She could almost feel the metal pulse, as though echoing Dylan's own heartbeat trapped inside. Mara's geologic maps now meant little. Whatever lay beneath the halo obeyed no earthly process. Dawn leaked through cracked shutters when sirens wailed down the valley road. Search volunteers texted a warning. The National Guard had set up checkpoints, and anyone caught near Lost Horse Trail would face federal charges. Guard fences sliced the forest like fresh scars, floodlights bleaching centuries-old bark. Soldiers wore respirators said to block toxic geothermal gases. Yet locals whispered of something far stranger, lights seen moving under the soil at night, humming patches where snow refused to settle. Leah refused to abandon her fight. Under a moonless sky, she and Mara hiked to a ridge overlooking the sealed basin. Below, the Devil's Halo glowed a sickly violet, pulsing in sync with the floodlight generators, as if feeding on their current. When a gust tore through the pines, the pool's steam spiraled upward, forming a brief human silhouette, a man carrying a small child, before dissolving into stars. Leah's knees buckled. Mara hauled her back. From their hiding spot, they watched soldiers fire flares into the mist that winked out mid-air, swallowed by an unseen mouth. 2 nights later, an unmarked padded envelope slid under Leah's motel door. Inside lay half of a heart-shaped locket, its hinge fused shut. Embedded in the metal was a thumbnail memory card. Jonah's laptop read a single 3-second clip, a spinning view of a crystalline passage lit by pulsing turquoise veins. At frame 72, a figure in a smoke-stained jacket appears, reaching toward the lens. Dylan, eyes wide, mouthing a single word. Up. The feed ends in static. GPS data shows coordinates impossible for any camera. Depth, a 137 mi beneath the halo. Leah's resolve hardened. No fence, no citation could halt her now. She spread topographic sheets across the floor, tracing forgotten mine shafts intersecting the thermal pocket. Somewhere in that labyrinth, the father still pointed the way out. All she had to do was follow him down. 3 miles north of the halo, Leah located a forgotten adit blasted in 1912 for copper that never materialized. Maps said it dead-ended, but Mara's LiDAR overlays suggested the shaft brushed the same void feeding the pool. At dusk, they slipped past a checkpoint, Jonah hauling a reel of fiber optic line no thicker than fishing thread. The tunnel breathed cold, stale air scented with iron. 50 yards in, bare timbers sagged like rotted ribs. Water dripped a metronome on broken rail ties. At the collapse point, Mara unpacked microcharges, mining putty designed to fracture stone without shrapnel. One muffled thud later, dust whirled back on them as if inhaled by the mountain. A black gap yawned open, exhaling a warm, floral breeze that belied the rock-bound cold. Leah's pulse hammered. Ahead, a faint turquoise shimmer pulsed in the dark, ticking 3 times, pausing, then ticking again, Evan's ghostly counting echoing from the deep. They crawled through jagged stone into a cathedral of glass. Walls curved like the inside of a giant conch, every rib glowing soft teal. The floor sloped in shallow terraces, each ring humming a note lower than the last, producing a chord that resonated in Jonah's chest. At the chamber's center hovered a translucent sphere, rotating languidly, yet unsupported. Inside flickered spectral images, Dylan leading Evan along a shining ramp, Leah calling their names, soldiers erecting fences above. Time, it seemed, was recorded here like ripples trapped in amber. Leah reached out. Her fingertips stopped at an invisible barrier that felt both cool and alive. Lines of light traced her palm, reading identity, then bloomed outward in recognition. The sphere brightened, focusing on Dylan's face. He mouthed, "Down. Follow," before the vision hiccuped, shattering into shards of light that spun around the trio like startled fireflies. The chamber dimmed, redirecting energy to a spiral stair cut into the wall. Steps fused from obsidian-like glass. Each tread glowed underfoot, measuring weight, temperature, intent. As they descended, Jonah's recorder went silent. The frequencies here sat below the threshold of silicon. After 20 turns, the air shifted from floral warmth to crisp alpine chill, though no breeze stirred. They reached a balcony overlooking an abyss where molten rivulets fell like slow rain into darkness. Suspended across the void was a bridge of hexagonal plates, pivoting in response to their heartbeats, locking ahead, dissolving behind. At the far side, a door of rippling mineral formed a familiar outline, the shape of a child's drawing. A house with one window, smoke curling from the chimney. Leah recognized Evan's crayon signature etched in the corner. Wherever Dylan had taken him, the boy had marked the path home. Crossing the bridge, Leah whispered the lullaby she once sang at bedtime. With each line, a new plate solidified, guiding them onward. Beyond the door lay a narrow corridor whose walls displayed living murals, memories projected in shimmering relief. Dylan teaching Evan to skip stones, Leah roasting marshmallows by Flathead Lake. Arguments, reconciliations, birthdays, all captured like constellations. At the corridor's end, glass petals unfurled, revealing a small chamber no larger than a barn stall. In its center hovered a crystalline pod, veins of gold flickering across its surface. Through the shell, Leah saw Evan asleep, fingers curled around his dinosaur clip, cheeks flushed but peaceful. Beside him lay Dylan, hand resting protectively over the child's heart, eyes closed yet unlined by 4 lost years, as if time obeyed different laws in this cocoon of light. Crossing the bridge, Leah whispered the lullaby she once sang at bedtime. With each line, a new plate solidified, guiding them onward. Beyond the door lay a narrow corridor whose walls displayed living murals, memories projected in shimmering relief. Dylan teaching Evan to skip stones, Leah roasting marshmallows by Flathead Lake. Arguments, reconciliations, birthdays, all captured like constellations. At the corridor's end, glass petals unfurled, revealing a small chamber no larger than a barn stall. In its center hovered a crystalline pod, veins of gold flickering across its surface. Through the shell, Leah saw Evan asleep, fingers curled around his dinosaur clip, cheeks flushed but peaceful. Beside him lay Dylan, hand resting protectively over the child's heart, eyes closed yet unlined by 4 lost years, as if time obeyed different laws in this cocoon of light. Footfalls clanged across the hexagonal bridge. Leah pressed her forehead to the pod. "I'm here," she whispered, voice cracking. Dylan's eyelids fluttered. The rings beneath his hand lit amber. A countdown glowed. 5 minutes until environmental lock. Mara scanned the schematic, locating a node labeled Conductor Spire, aligned directly below the halo's center. She pointed to a thin shaft plunging upward. "If we raise that, the next storm completes the circuit." Jonah slid a multi-tool into the ring panel, twisting until a metallic snap echoed. Far above, the cathedral groaned. Glass floors rippled to life, channeling energy toward the spire. Static lifted Leah's hair. In the corridor murals, the soldiers halted, startled by the charging hum. Lightning sensors topside would read a supercell forming where no clouds existed. Leah kissed the pod and turned. They had 5 minutes to reach the spire, or lose Dylan and Evan to the mountain's silent eternity. They sprinted back along the corridor, murals flickering past like fractured memories. Behind them, boots thundered closer, radios barking orders. As Mara guided the way with her tablet's hologram, Jonah lobbed a flare capsule onto the bridge. It burst into blinding mag-white fire, causing the hexagonal plates to liquefy, then solidify in erratic pulses. The pursuing soldiers stumbled, their weight triggering the bridge to dissolve beneath their feet. Echoes of shouts and shattering glass chased the trio upward. Leah felt the countdown ticking in her skull, every heartbeat a second lost. At a fork, a low passage opened to a spiraling service vein. Narrow enough the soldiers' gear would snag. Warm air flowed upward, carrying the same triple pulse. They climbed, palms slipping on slick obsidian, until a turquoise glow signaled they were nearing the spire's base. The spire chamber was a vast cylinder lined with luminous ribs, each throbbing like a colossal Tesla coil. In the center rose the conductor pillar, glass-metal alloy tapering toward a pinprick skylight far above. Storm clouds had gathered, summoned by energies crackling around the peak. Mara located a control plinth, 3 interlocking rings similar to those on Dylan's pod. She placed the shard of glass she kept from the new vent into the central socket. The ring spun, reading its code, and the pillar began to extend. Thunder boomed outside. Suddenly, a spotlight seared through a side tunnel. Soldiers had found another route. Leah, adrenaline burning hot, grabbed a carbon pry bar from Jonah's pack. While Mara calculated the pillar's full rise time, 2 minutes, the soldiers opened fire, bullets whining off crystal walls, leaving molten craters that healed seconds later as if the mountain refused their violence. Jonah threw a sound grenade. The blast reverberated in frequencies too low to hear, sending shock waves along the ribs. The soldiers' visors cracked, forcing them to retreat behind cover. Leah and Mara braced against the plinth as the pillar groaned, sliding upward like a giant tuning fork seeking the sky. Outside, lightning leapt between forming clouds, then danced down the conductor's length, illuminating the shaft with electric veins. Static charged the chamber. Leah's skin prickled, hair floating. She felt a tug, as if some unseen force measured her resolve, weighing her against mountain and storm. At 90% extension, the pillar stalled, a jammed gear where bullet debris jammed the track. Without full contact, the circuit would fail. Jonah scrambled up service rungs, sparks licking his boots, to clear the obstruction before the storm passed. Mid-climb, a soldier lunged from a side ledge, grappling with Jonah. They swung above the glowing abyss, each strike echoing like drumbeats. Leah shouted. The mountain answered with a quake, shaking both men. Jonah wrenched a broken visor plate free and slammed it into the attacker's respirator. The soldier tumbled, armor clanging against ribs, before vanishing into white steam below. Jonah reached the jam, pried a warped bullet out, and the pillar lurched, locking into place with a resonant chime that rippled through every tunnel. At ground level, Leah watched arcs of lightning converge on the spire's tip, then plunge downward in a blinding column. A surge howled through the mountain, snapping every floodlight topside. The soldiers' radios shrieked before dying. In the pod chamber far beneath, amber rings would now glow emerald, release sequence engaged. Energy cascaded back down the conductor, racing along channels etched through glass corridors. Leah felt the rumble shift pitch, a triumphal chord rather than menace. She signaled Jonah and Mara to retreat. The spire was now humming at a frequency that vibrated bones. As they dashed into the service vein, the chamber behind them imploded inward, folding like molten origami. Crystal walls absorbed excess charge, their surfaces flowing then freezing like tidal ice. The trio navigated collapsing passages guided by flashes of green light pulsing toward the pod chamber, each pulse a heartbeat synchronizing father, son, and rescuers. Voices crackled on abandoned soldier comms. "Evac now! Core overload!" Yet the mountain seemed calmer than ever, as if satisfied with the storm it had summoned. They reached the crystalline pod room to find the shell fracturing into petal-like segments, emerald light bathing Dylan and Evan. Air rushed in. Frost blossomed across the pod's rim, revealing how cold true time had been inside. Dylan's eyes snapped open first, confusion melting into relief when he saw Leah. Evan stirred, clutching his dinosaur clip, whispering, "Mom?" Leah's sob became a laugh as she gathered them. Mara's tablet showed external pressure normalizing. The chamber's energy cycles were powering down. Yet on the mural's outer corridors still played images of soldiers retreating, followed by the mountain resealing every path behind them. The halo, having expelled its guests, was closing its doors. A single phrase scrolled across the pod base before fading. Transit complete. Remember the light. And somewhere above, the first stars pierced the storm's ragged veil, glittering like shards of the Bitterroot's hidden heart. Leah wrapped her jacket around Evan as Dylan steadied himself, blinking at a world that had raced 4 years ahead. Mara led them toward the service vane, tracing green pulses now fading to amber. The mountain's hum softened, replaced by the distant rush of newly formed waterfalls sealing shafts behind them. They climbed the narrowing passage, Jonah guiding Dylan's unsure steps. In the cathedral above, shattered ribs re-knit like living stone, erasing every trace of the spire. When they emerged through the mine adit, dawn bruised the horizon violet. Guard checkpoints lay deserted, vehicles drained of power, soldiers nowhere in sight, as if the mountain had exhaled them like mist. Leah breathed crisp air, scent of pine and ozone, and whispered thanks to a sky turning gold. They reached Leah's truck hidden in scrub oak. Evan stared wide-eyed at the dashboard screen, astonished by its glow. Dylan's hands shook as he scrolled headlines dated years he'd never lived. Mara radio-checked static-filled channels. The entire county grid remained dark. Jonah powered a sat phone and found one bar, enough to ping a trusted journalist with a single sentence. Family recovered. Proof secured. Leah clutched the shard in Mara's pocket. Dylan's badge fused in glass. Knowing it alone could unravel any cover-up. As they sped toward Missoula, tremors rippled the valley floor, gentle but insistent, like the mountain settling beneath a blanket. Behind them, clouds parted to reveal the devil's halo once more, now a placid pond of turquoise, steam rising in slow spirals that spelled neither warning nor welcome, only an enigmatic goodbye. News of their escape spread before power returned. Citizens filmed the silent evacuation of federal trucks, antennas folded, evidence crates sealed with blank labels. Leah's video call, broadcast by the podcaster, showed Dylan's weathered face and Evan waving the dinosaur clip. Viewers wept. Conspiracy boards cracked under traffic. Scientists demanded access. The Forest Service declared the halo structurally unstable and extended closure for 5 miles. No agency claimed authority. Within hours, senators called hearings. Leah retained counsel but chose a simpler defense: truth in plain sight. She released the LiDAR maps, spectrograms, and the 3-second clip of Dylan reaching toward the lens. The public, once skeptical, now marched for transparency, their chants echoing the triple pulse that had guided Dylan's footsteps in the dark. Under hospital lights, doctors marveled at Dylan and Evan's pristine vitals. No cell degradation, no muscle atrophy. Time's knife had skipped them. Blood work revealed trace minerals matching the glass shard, compounds unknown on any periodic table. The CDC quietly quarantined samples, but Dylan signed consent for open research, vowing no agency would bury answers again. Nightly, he woke gasping, ears ringing with the conductor's thunder. Evan slept soundly, murmuring counts of 1, 2, 3, smiling each time lightning flashed beyond the blinds. Leah recorded his dreams. Each morning he described corridors of light and whispers telling him, "Remember the glow." Psychologists labeled it coping. Leah called it memory. On the anniversary of their rescue, Leah, Dylan, and Evan hiked a ridge overlooking the now quiet basin. Snow dusted the peaks. The air buzzed faintly, like distant wires in wind. They placed a plaque carved from the halo's re-hardened glass, for those drawn by curiosity, tempered by love. Evan set his dinosaur beside it, patting the plaque as if thanking the mountain. As sunset bled into the valley, a final tremor rippled, gentle, approving. The pool below shimmered, reflecting first stars that grouped into a perfect triangle, then dissolved into night. Dylan squeezed Leah's hand. "Whatever's down there," he said, voice soft. "It let us go." Leah nodded, watching the sky paint silent answers. Somewhere in the depths, unseen circuits dimmed. recording one last memory before the Bitterroot Range returned to quiet stone, waiting, patient, for the next curious footstep and the story still untold. Congress convened emergency hearings once the Bitterroot files surfaced. Under vaulted lights, Leah recounted the glass tunnels and the pod's quiet heartbeat. Dylan testified next, voice steady until he described the sphere showing futures and memories like living film. Senators shifted, wary of admitting something older than geology itself. Mara presented the iridium-laced shard. Instruments in the chamber jammed, screens blooming teal spirals before rebooting. Public broadcast cut away, citing signal instability. But phone mics in the gallery captured a low triple pulse vibrating the marble floor, an echo of the halo reminding Washington its story was not theirs to bury. Outside the Capitol, protesters held candles arranged in concentric rings, humming the 1-2-3 cadence Evan once murmured in stasis. At midnight, every flame leaned west as if tugged by unseen wind. Simultaneously, seismic arrays across 5 states logged a synchronized tremor only 9 seconds long, amplitude tapering in perfect thirds. Geophysicists called it coincidence. Cryptographers overlaid the waveform onto prime number grids, unveiling coordinates for volcanic hotspots worldwide. Dylan woke from a dream that night, palm glowing faintly where the badge once fused to glass. Leah cooled his skin with a cloth, realizing the mountain's signal had followed them east, subtle, patient, impossible to mute. Evan, now free of hospital monitors, built models of hexagonal bridges from popsicle sticks, guiding each plate with whispered counts. Engineers from MIT visited, astonished at the child's instinctive grasp of load-balancing lattices no textbook yet contained. They filmed his constructions. Each collapse produced a tone matching the Bitterroot's pulse. Funding flowed for a joint expedition, but permits stalled under national security. Meanwhile, Leah authored a memoir, Into the Halo, weaving love, loss, and the Earth's hidden intelligence. On launch day, every pre-order email carried a glitch, an attached image of violet steam forming a bridge that led into clouds, time-stamped precisely 4 years after Dylan vanished. Spring returned to Montana. The family hiked a lower ridge where wildflowers now spiraled in perfect logarithms. As dusk painted the peaks ember pink, Evan paused, tilting his head. The horizon flickered, 3 silent lightning bolts striking the old halo site. The weather radar showed clear skies. A gentle vibration rippled underfoot, arranging pine needles into a tidy triangle pointing north. Dylan knelt beside his son. Leah rested a hand on both their shoulders. They didn't speak. Some doors, once opened, never truly close. They breathe, waiting for the right voice to answer. Above them, the first stars shimmered, aligning for a moment into that same triangle before dissolving. A final promise that the Bitterroot's ancient heart still listens, and that their story, our story, has only begun to glow. Early autumn brought the first sanctioned expedition back to the Devil's Halo. A lean team of civilian geologists, 2 MIT engineers, and Mara, under a strict non-disclosure, trekked in at dawn. Leah, Dylan, and Evan watched from a public overlook as cranes lowered a graphene-sleeved seismograph into the refurbished basin. The device pulsed violet on contact, broadcasting a live spectrum display that rippled like northern lights across portable screens. 30 seconds later, every readout flattened to 0, total silence beneath ground that had never stopped humming. Then, almost shyly, a single line reappeared, drawn in perfect thirds like the child's counting cadence, but slower, lower, patient. Mara radioed Leah. "It's waiting for input." Evan pressed both palms to the cold rail. Without words, he whispered 1, 2, 3, and on the monitors the line blossomed into a spiral, opening as if the mountain itself leaned closer, curious to see who had come back to speak. Night settled before the team cleared the site. Camp lights flickered under a moon thin as a shard of glass. Around the basin, wildflowers glowed faint teal, tracing new paths down toward hidden galleries. Dylan recorded a voice log, his first since rescue. "For 4 years I thought the mountain kept us," he said, eyes reflecting starlight. "But maybe it was teaching us rhythm, listening for a melody it had forgotten." In the darkness, Evan built another popsicle bridge, each plank set to the pulse only he truly heard. When he placed the final stick, a hush swept the clearing. The air itself felt tuned. Above, constellations shimmered, sliding subtly into that familiar triangle before drifting apart like slow breath. Leah closed the log, her voice soft. Day 1 of the conversation. Far below, unseen circuits etched in stone recorded the words, storing them gently beside countless others, a library waiting for the next verse of humanity's song.